How are you this afternoon? So far, so good? Good? So welcome to this 2017 session of It's Up to Be Square, Analyzing Cube Data. So my name is Stéphane d'Avril-Favreau. I know my last name is not easy to pronounce and to type. If you are looking for something from me, you can just simply do a search on Stéphane. I'm the only Stéphane at Tableau, so just type in Stéphane and you should be able to reach me. Forget about the d'Avril-Favreau, all right? So, qui suis-je? Who I am? So, I'm a senior sales consultant based in Montreal. I think you already figured like I'm French speaking. With my accent, I cannot hide it. So, I've been like working with business intelligence and OLAP for more than 20 years. I started using OLAP technologies in the early 90s, using my first OLAP technology I worked with was ComShare, System W. I don't know if some of you know this technology, but pretty old. I should not talk about that, but that was my first steps with OLAP technology. Then after, I spent like almost 10 years working with Essbase. I don't know if there are some Essbase users in the room. Yes? So I spent like almost 10 years working on implementing Essbase system. And then after, I joined a company called Microsoft, and I was exposed to a lot to analysis services. So in my spare time, like I'm a big sports fan, so I like football, baseball, but as a Canadian, my favorite sport is hockey. So I'm a big fan of the Montreal Canadiens, the Bleu, Blanc, Rouge. And in my spare time, I like to do analysis over data, hockey statistics. Talking about hockey statistics, we are in Las Vegas. Today, it's an important date for the community here and for hockey. It's going to be the first ever home game for the new franchise in Las Vegas. So the Golden Knights. So it's an important date, like as a hockey fan for me, like having a new team is very good. So I would like to wish like the Canadian warm welcome to Vegas and the NHL. So I think it's going to be a good journey. So in order to mark this occasion, this new team in the NHL, I'm going to use hockey stats in my demos later today. All right? So before we start, related session, I don't know if some of you attend this morning. It was a hands-on on OLAP, and the session is repeated tomorrow. So I think like you need to reserve a seat. It's maybe already full, but if you want to go a little bit more deep with interacting with cubes, with hands-on, like you have this session tomorrow, hosted by my colleague Kurt Budd and San Diego Sanchez. Okay, so I'm going to divide the content like to keep the hockey concept here, 3 periods. So the first period will be more about like, should we use Tableau with OLAP, yes or no? So there are different like approach working with cubes, and we're gonna talk about some scenarios about when it's good to use one or the other or both together. We're gonna do like a demo covering like how we can interact with cubes. And the second period will be more about, like the experience is a bit different when you connect to Cube compared to relational or Excel. So we're going to talk about some workaround to make what you want to accomplish. And then the final period, what's new in OLAP. There's not a lot of new features in OLAP over the last couple of years. So, but still we have some new not new functionalities, but new features I can share with you. So if we need overtime, maybe I can answer your question after the session will be available. All right? First period. So OLAP or Tableau or both. Why not both? So for those of you who knows Wayne Gretzky, he was probably the greatest player of all time. And he was very good he has a different thinking. So he was very good to use all the squares, like all the space on the ice, and he has a very special peripheral vision. So he was really able to leverage his teammates. He was a good scorer, but also a good passer. So like today, we're going to talk about two technologies that can work together. So Tableau will receive like data from Cube, right? So a little bit of history here. So OLAP or Tableau. So the OLAP, the rise of OLAP was in the early 90s, right? So there was a lot of new technologies like Essbase, like Cognos, business objects. So there was a big rise because there was this demand to help people analyzing their data, because at the time, the computer power was not as good as today, and they need to have more, like a better response time and a better user interface, like the drag and drop interface and things like that. So during the 90s, like the Dr. Code came with this definition about OLAP with these 12 rules. So if you take a look at all these rules, multidimensional concept, like multi-user reports, intuitive manipulation, if you take a look at all these features, these are covered by Tableau. Like with data sources and a combination of data sources and extract, it's very similar to all these rules from Tableau. So when I'm facing customers, we have a lot of questions about, should we keep our cube? Should we work with Tableau with cube, or should we just use Tableau? So we have this kind of questions, and this is what we're going to cover a little bit, what we're going to cover today. So why I'm mentioning, why not both? You can get like the power of the two tools together. So when you, like the cube is another source like a relational, so, but with Tableau, you can really leverage like your cube model with the cool functionalities you have with Tableau, like blending or easy navigation or adding kind of properties to members. So this is cool, like colors, logos, and things like that. This is something you cannot do with regular with regular like cube interface or with Excel. So this is cool, and you can do some stuff when you have cubes as a data source. You can do some things you cannot do usually with Tableau, like asymmetric reports or hierarchy filters like this. So to bring the two technologies together is an added value. Okay? So I'm going to show you like how we can interact with cubes and how we can leverage both technologies. Okay. So metadata navigation. So on the left side, you'll see my cube structure. Okay? Just before we start, like some raised their hand with Essbase, analysis services. Okay, maybe half of the room. BW, a little bit less. Essbase again. Okay, so probably like more, and some are not using OLAP at all. Okay, so I would say like half of the room is using analysis services, and this is what I'm going to use for the demonstration. I have a local cube, a local analysis services cube with my hockey stats. So if you take a quick look at the cube structure, it's a small cube. I have 3 dimensions, like the player's dimension, the team, and the time dimension. The time are all the games that occurred last year. So the stats are all the goals by every player on every game last year. Okay? So if you look at the structure here, it's a bit different. Like you see, like the members are identified with kind of a card, so those are member attributes. And you can see hierarchies like that. So like in the player hierarchies, I have the city where the players are born, so I create like a hierarchy. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but you have like the level 1, level 2 is identified, okay? In this case, I can see this is country, this is state of province, and this is city. And the fields, we also have the same fields in the structure, like city, state, province, and country. And those were already identified by Tableau as a geographical field. So by default, when you have a hierarchy, you see the hierarchy sign, but you can do like on relational, apply a geography role like country. Okay, so this is how you can bonify your model. So the experience is very similar in the fact, like, if I drag and drop like goals per, let's say, per team, if I go like in my team hierarchy, I see team, okay, all the teams. So these are all the goal score per team last year, okay? And if you take a look, it's like the relational engine. By default, the sort for the team is based on the alphabetical order, okay? But if you remember, like in my structure, I also have like a team hierarchy. So this is the league kind of organization with team, division, conference. So there's a hierarchy, but the team field is also in a hierarchy. So if I drag and drop field, the team, instead of the other team, now we see the order, the sort is different, okay? Because the sort now is based on the hierarchy structure. So you see, if you mouse over, we can see with the little pop-up that the name of the field is a hierarchy. So that's why like the sort is not the same as the other one. So if I right-click on my pill here, I can see my hierarchy levels. So if I want to see the divisions, so there are 4 divisions like Atlantic, Metropolitan, Central, and I can drill or continue to move up. So up to the league level. So now if I drill all my levels, I can see that's exactly the sort I have when I drag and drop team without like the hierarchy. So keep in mind, like the sort can be different. In this case, I have the same name, the same field name with team, but the rendering is a bit different. Okay. Also, what is very cool is when I used to do like orchestras for many years, and one thing I was very frustrated is like if I drag and drop, if I want to have a different color for my team, like with other tools, it's very difficult to get a color, right? To get like the official color from the team. So with Tableau and Cube, like on relational, you can change or you can add properties to your field. So if I go there, in fact, it's similar to relational, but if I change the properties, like the color properties, I created my own color palette specific for NHL team. So using the preference file, I don't know if you're familiar with the preference file, but that's a file you can create to create your own color palette. So now I create my own, and I can assign the palette to the teams. And if I click OK, then I have the official color from every team. Okay, so this is like really like the 2 technologies together that will help you to create very cool stuff. Same properties as the color, but I can change my shape. So now if I want to have my team logos, I can assign my team logos, assign the palette, apply. So now if I use my team, I change my view to a shape one and drag the team in shapes, I will have my logos. Okay? So Tableau and Cubes together, you can really raise what you can do in terms of look and feel compared to other tools. Okay? So that was a quick overview of the navigation and how you can bonify your cube structure with Tableau. Now, an important concept with Tableau and cubes is how you can work with filters. Okay? So if instead of using goals, I will use like penalty minutes. So we will be able to identify the toughest team in the NHL in terms of penalty minutes. So I will drag and drop team here, not from the hierarchy, but like from the member attribute here. So this is exact same experience. Like I can unselect and exclude, and the behavior is exactly the same as relational, okay, in this thing. I mean, it's exactly the same when I use a field that is on the screen or on the view, and I use it in the filter. But if I remove team from the filter, and I want to see another filter based on another field like the player position. Like if I want to analyze like position, if I drag it in filter, position I have center, left wing, right wing, defenseman. So now this is, I can select all and maybe remove these guys and click OK. So now you see there is a little sigma icon, okay? Because this field is not selected with the sigma, this means like Tableau just calculate the slice of data automatically. Just to help you see that, if I do the show filter, you see like all these selections were made, and Tableau just aggregates all these values from the selected values to generate like an aggregation on the fly, okay? So if I uncheck and select just one, this combination, this aggregation exists in the cube, so that's why you don't see a sigma. The moment I had a new one, then I have two members selected, I see the sigma sign. So this means it does an aggregation on the fly. So the reason I'm talking about that is if you have a dashboard with a lot of filters like that, and it has to aggregate a lot of filters and a lot of slides at the same time, you may have like some kind of performance issue, okay? So you need to be aware this is something that Tableau does on the fly, aggregating data, okay? One other example with filter is we can create sets. So I don't know if you're familiar if you use sets, but if you want to, as an example, if I want just to identify the Canadian team, the teams from Canada, so I can select Edmonton, Montreal, I have Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. And from these members, I can create a set, okay? So this is Canadian teams. And now I can drag and drop this set in filter. So now I can only see the Canadian team, and if I do like a show filter, I see just the Canadian teams, okay? So this is good, and if you are familiar with Tableau against relational, when you have a set, you can specify in or out the set. With the cube, you don't have this option in and out, okay? So it does exactly what you just saw. Okay, you don't have this notion of in and out. Okay? Good. One very good thing about interacting with cubes is the fact you have flexibility to represent hierarchies. So let's go back with my goals in columns and use let's use like our league hierarchy, like this. So I have the top level, so this is the number of goals for all the teams last year. So I can drill up to the team level, the lowest level, similar to a hierarchy you create in Tableau. But something you cannot do with Tableau when you are against a relational, it's asymmetric drill down. What I mean by asymmetric, if I just want to drill metropolitan division, you have this little plus sign, and you drill, okay? So I will do it again because I want you to pay attention to something. Take a look at the filter here. There's no filter. I didn't select anything or keep only or exclude. But the moment I click on this little plus, you'll see in the top left in the filter shelf, you see like we have a filter now, okay? Because if you want to see like the representation of the filter, not exit, but show filter. So now you can see how the filter looks like. So you see the different levels, and once it's selected, and maybe I should drag and drop the team, not the team, but the division, just to make it a little bit more clear. So we have 4 divisions for color, and if I do it again, I can collapse, and so you see the effect on the filter. So Metropolitan is selected the moment I drill on Metropolitan, then Metropolitan is unselected and the team is selected. Okay, so you can do in the interface by clicking the members, or you can do it in the filter shelf right here. So as an example, here I see Atlantic, so this is the orange bar. I can hide Atlantic or simply add new teams. So you can do it in the interface here or work with the filters, okay? And the beauty with the filters is you can select an entire level. So you have level 0, which is total, the conference, the division, and the team. So if I want to select all the teams, I can click and see all the teams, okay? With one click, I can select all the teams. So you can really like navigate and select exactly the thing you want to see with like the level filters you have with cubes. Okay. Another topic similar to filters, and I have a very similar view. Instead of bars, I use like numbers and text, but it's how Tableau with cubes will manage the subtotals. So if I drag and drop like subtotals, I see the subtotals, and I can drag also the grand total. So you see the number are 2,625. So subtotals are equal to the total. And if you look here, I have the conference selected, and I have teams, okay? So what's going to be the effect on totals and subtotals when I select or unselect a member? If I click on, let's say, Boston, I want to remove Boston, see the totals and the subtotals here. The subtotals change to reflect my selection, but the grand total didn't change. Why is that? It's because the grand total takes this higher level as the grand total, okay? So if I do it again, but I remove Eastern, so I will remove this number, I remove Eastern. Now, I don't have the same granularity, so if I remove Boston, then my grand total reflects Boston because my highest level is not there. So the moment I select Eastern, now my grand total includes Eastern. Okay, this is something you need to be aware of because it can be confusing. Okay, with totals and grand totals, the grand total would take into account the highest level in the hierarchy you see on the screen. Okay? Okay, one other example, and this is like the data blending. This is probably one of the reasons why users, they love to use Tableau against Cube. Okay, because you can mix data from Cube with other data source. Okay, so in my case, what I want to analyze is how Vegas should be this year. Because in my database, in my cube, I have all the goals from last year. What I want to see is what now with the players Vegas got, are they going to be good or not? So what I'll do is I'll drag and drop the number of goals, and I will blend with my second source, which is an Excel file, which contains like the rosters for this year's team. So now I should have Vegas, which was not the case because last year Vegas was not in the league. So now I can drag and drop my team code, and I got this warning. If you are familiar with blending, we need to join 2 fields together. Okay, now I didn't do that. Like I have the warning about you should try to find a common field. So now I need to check this blend button, and the the connection or the join will be made on the player code. So now I can see, like, Vegas is there. Let's drag and drop, like, I created like a Boolean field just to identify Vegas. Vegas is the red one, okay? And I have nulls because some players last year, they retired or they just lost their job. So we can remove, like, exclude the null. So now we can see, like, Vegas is, of course, it's a new team. It's an expansion team, so it's not, they are not as good as other team. And we can compare adding the average line to see where this stands compared to the average line. What I would like to see, though, is a sort to see exactly where they rank compared to other team. But with blending, and this is not a limitation with Cube, but when you do blending, like, the sort is not available. For those of you who are familiar with sort, not available. So, but we can have a workaround. So if I go back in the Cube, what I can create is a calculated field based on a blending, based on a blend field. So what I'm going to do here is create a calculated field, and I'm going to call it like my blend field, blend team, okay? And I'm going to simply drag and drop the team code in my calculation. So now, in my cube structure, I will have this blend field coming from my Excel file. Now, if I drag and drop my blend in my queue, or in my view, I can see I have the new blend field and the team code. I can drag and drop team code in detail. And now, if I click, I have the sort button. Okay, so I can see exactly where Vegas stands. It's not the last one, even if it's a new team, it's not the last one. It's not that bad. Okay, so the example I want to show you is you can create a calculated field in the cube based on a source that is not in the cube. That is very powerful. Finally, putting everything together, I tried to build an example where we see, like, the color attributes, like unbalanced hierarchies and unbalanced report. And if you take a close look at the chart, we see this logo. So this is like the Boston Bruins logo, and it's replicated. So technically, I should have just one line with Boston, but you see, this is not there's no team here. This is like the division level. There's no team, and by default, Tableau took the first one in the list, which is Boston in this case. But it's because it generates a field called RAG, okay? So RAG is not a member that exists in the cube, but Tableau generates this member for aggregation. So based on that, what you can do is simply associate a color to this RAG one, okay? So I can use, like, kind of a gray one, light gray, and I have a light gray, and I can do the same with my shape. So the RAG, I can select a new shape, maybe the NHL logo in this case. Whoops. Let's try it again. NHL logo. Apply, click OK. Okay, so keep in mind, like, you might find this RAG member. This is generated automatically by Tableau, okay? So the properties, we saw the properties in the database, in the cube structure prior to this, and now we just adjust that in the view to reflect this, the RAG member that was created. Okay, let's go back in the presentation. Okay, so what I think are the best cases or the best scenario to justify the usage of a cube? One version of the truth. So in some cases, you might want to use cube for different for different business requirements or for different usage. So if you are like analysis services or Essbase users, like the Excel add-in is great if you want to analyze tables. You know, the tabular mode in Excel is great. So maybe you want to use like Tableau and Excel for certain user. Or maybe you want to have like pixel perfect reports using reporting services or Crystal. So using Cube as a source. You also for SAP users, maybe you would like to use Bex to create some queries. So when you need to have like one common database that can be used with different user interface, that's a good scenario. Also, I don't know if you have this kind of scenarios in your organization, building complex models. Okay, when you have many-to-many relationship, when you have complex joints. So you can do that with Tableau, but not as complex as this one, right? So you don't want it, like some end users, they just want to connect, they don't want to do blend, they don't want to do join. So when it's pre-aggregated, pre-joined, pre-calculated, for some users, they prefer to do that by far, especially when you have a complex model like this one, and also when you have to deal with billions of rows, when it's pre-calculated, pre-aggregated, it's faster. So this scenario is also a very good, usage for a good justification to use cubes. Another important fact is when you use cubes, you can have account intelligence when you define your cube. I mentioned like I worked a lot with Essbase in the 90s, analysis services. Mainly I was using Essbase for budgeting, forecasting, and financial system. So in some cases when you have a chart of account where you have like asset, liabilities, expense, income, or inventory, like the aggregation per month is not the same. So you have different type of aggregation you need to put in place because like expense and inventory, you don't aggregate the same as you do with, it's not the same. So with Tableau, you don't have this notion of, let's say, financial attributes or financial aggregation. So you can do that with complex calculation, but in cubes, it's like in analysis services, you have a wizard that will help you to define these kind of rules. And like in Essbase, you have like, you can tag members like expense reporting. So when you do like a comparison between actual and budget, if you are expense, if you are less in the budget, then it's good. For revenue, it's the opposite. So the rules, those aggregation or financial aggregations are pre-built in the cube, which is very, very good. Okay? So for financial, that's another very good way to leverage cubes. Another good reason, if you need to deal with this type of org chart. I don't know if you have tried to build this, something like this in Tableau. So Tableau is very good. If you need to create a hierarchy when you have like 3 levels, let's say you have president, VP, and director. 3 columns, 3 fields, that's perfect. Tableau, you will drag and drop the 2 fields to create like your hierarchy. It's going to be perfect, okay? But now, like if you take a look at the green squares, those are all what we call level 0 in the cube. This is the lowest level. So in this case, I have an unbalanced hierarchy, and VP here has no child or no employees. So it's kind of at the same level as the exec assistant here. Okay, so we cannot really, with Tableau, you can try to generate something similar, but you will have to do some compromise, right? Maybe have an empty level, or you need to do a little bit of gymnastic in order to create this kind of hierarchy. With Cube, with a simple parent-child table relationship, creating like this kind of hierarchy is very easy, okay? So that's the hierarchies. And also, maybe it's because I'm coming from Canada and I have to deal with 2 official languages, In cubes, you can create like multilingual structure, okay? So we can swap from one to the other without any change. So that's a good way to leverage cube. And even for those of you who knows Essbase, you have this notion called alias, which is not the same as a Tableau alias. You can have multiple aliases in Essbase. So in this example, we see like we have description, short and long description. For some reports, maybe you want to have the short description. So you can swap from one to the other very easily. So if you are connected to Essbase, you have this alias file, but it's not the same as a Tableau alias. You have to be careful with that. Okay. So now, what you need to know, okay? So we saw like the good things, the good scenarios. What you need to know, like hockey is a tough game. Sometimes you get hit, you receive a puck on the ankle and everything, it's not easy. For experienced user with Tableau, if they are familiar with relational, they will feel it's tough to work with cubes because you have limitation. Okay, so what you need to know about using Tableau and cubes is first, like, we support certain cube technology, okay? The common denominator for these sources we support is they are all using MDX, okay? So that's why sometimes we got questioned about, can we connect to Cognos Cube? Can we connect to Business Objects Universe? Those are not using MDX protocol or query language. So that's why we don't connect. So we rely to some partners to connect to these data source. And also what you need to know for users who are using Macs, cube connection are not available for a Mac, okay? What's not available when you use OLAP sources? As I mentioned, like the alias is not there. Everything is controlled in the cube. Some advanced analytics feature, like forecast and cluster is not there. You cannot create hierarchies. They are controlled in the cube. Same as aggregation. You cannot say, I want to see the average or the sum or count this thing or thing like that. It's not available. Groups and bins. And as of two weeks ago, extracts were not available, but now it's since then for BW users, we now have the extracts available for BW cubes, which is very cool. If you are using online, then you cannot publish online using cubes sources. Okay, so to continue with the difference, as I said, like the hierarchies are defined in the cube, no aggregation. And in terms of calculation, you cannot create a calculated field on a dimension. That's important, only with measures. So when you want to do like calculation against a dimension, then you need probably to use the calculated field using MDX. I'm going to show you how you can do that. So you can, with MDX, it's not an easy language, it's not an easy query language to learn, but you can create complex queries or complex calculation, okay? You can create groups, bins, and different types of new fields, okay? I'm going to show you that in the demo later. Table calculations are supported because it's in Tableau itself, so table calculations are supported. One quick word on web editing. I don't know if you have tried to do web editing with cubes as sources, but it's not supported. So if you publish a data source to a server, you won't get like the create workbook. When you right-click on the source on the server, you won't get it. It's not available. The only thing you can do is download the data source locally and then connect to your cube using desktop. So as of now, you cannot edit from a data source. The workaround on that is to simply publish a workbook that is connected to a cube. Once it's published, then you can edit the workbook. So you need just to to use like the prompt user when you publish, and you'll get prompt, and you'll be able to get the cube security if you want to apply the security. Okay, so from the source, it's not possible to edit, but with a published workbook, it's feasible. Let's do some calculated members using like different mechanism. Let's go back. Okay, just before creating like my first calculated field, let me show you, and another important thing you need to know is how we deal with dates. Okay, so I have this time hierarchy created from the, and I generated this using like the wizard to create a time dimension using analysis services. And when you connect to this hierarchy, you get text. It's a text field, okay, that is generated by analysis services. So as you can see, compared to when you click on a date with Tableau, I don't get like the line chart by default. It recognizes it as a text. So this means like if I go in analytics, I don't have my trend available, okay? So, and also, if you, let's say if you remove like the date and you just keep the month, like the sort is based on alphabetical order because it's text, okay? So if you want to deal with that, then you might talk to your cube designer to see, maybe you should, like having the name for month, year, month, day, okay? So this is something you might need to ask to your cube designer to change the way the data is structured if you want to use it like this. That being said, you can create a continuous date if you want with Tableau. So if I double click on goals again, I have this field, I have a couple of date fields, I have this date short, those are all text by default, but if I go there and change the data type to date, now I have this little date icon you recognize from Tableau Relational, and now if I drag and drop date short, I have my continuous date, okay? So with the continuous date, now my trend is available, okay? And also what's cool and what we like about date is when we do show filter, we can see the slider, okay? This is cool. So now I can use this date in conjunction with my date structure, my date hierarchy, even if it's text. If I use the day level, I can use my filter against my date hierarchy. Okay, so simply by just changing the date type on my field, you will get your continuous date. Another way to do that is to create a date using MDX. So how can I do that? I don't know if you're familiar with MDX, but I can, to get the MDX editor, you can go there, and instead of using calculated field, you use calculated member. Then you will get the MDX interface. Okay, you have to know MDX. There's no wizard to do drag and drop and helping you selecting fields. So in my case, I have this date continuous. I'm using the function, the type conversion function cdate, using my field date day with current member value. Those are MDX properties, and from there, syntax is good, you can click OK. So now I have this MDX date continuous. So if I drag and drop in columns, see I have an error, okay? Because if you remember, the formula was using like the current member, but I haven't selected any current member. So I need at least to put in detail the date that is related. So you need to do 2 steps. So it's good to use MDX, but you need to have in detail like a base field, okay? So that's why I would probably prefer the previous approach, because it's easier, you don't need to have this step, okay? Okay, so now, calculating a new measure, okay? So forget about date now, and now we're gonna create a new, we work with dates. Now I want to work with measures. I want to create a new measure. So in my cube, I have the number of goals per player and the number of assists. I don't have the number of points. Points is one plus the other. It's goals plus the addition of goals and assists. So Tableau with Cube supports calculated field from in measures. So I can simply drag and drop goals plus assist. And you see, if you do that with relational, you'll get a sum function in front of the member name. You don't have sum available because you cannot control the aggregation from a cube. So if you want to use like the wizard, sum doesn't exist. You don't get the sum. You will have running sum or window sum, which are table calc, but you won't get like the pure aggregate, the pure sum. Okay? So now if I click on points, and now I double click on points, I have my points here. Okay? Another way to do that is to use an MDX. So you have the choice. So the MDX, if I look at, I already created. So if I click on edit, okay, MDX points, edit, this is my formula, okay? So MDX points, it's an integer. In measures, it's simply like using like the MDX syntax, measure goals plus measure assist. Simple as that, okay? Which one is the best? Similar, okay? I would probably say in Tableau it's easier, and you don't need to know MDX, simply a simple drag and drop. So now, yes, table calculations. Okay, it's another way to aggregate data. So in this case, what I want to analyze is the ratio, the percentage using the percentage of goals per team against their division or their conference. So you can, I created this goal window sum here, goals window sum. It's a simple table calc. If you're familiar with window sum, it's going to aggregate or to sum the measure goals. And you can define how it's aggregated. So in this case, like the goals are aggregated per division. So if you do like the sum, the number here, 1743, is the same as this one. Or you can aggregate it per conference. So the sum is, oops, interesting. Okay, so the sum is 3625, which corresponds to the 3625 here. Okay? So this is the same syntax as doing table calculation using relational. The thing is, if for a reason or another you want to remove division, you might get some errors because division has to be in the view in order to use the table calc based on the division level. So if you want to avoid that, then maybe you can recreate these same calculation using MDX. So the ratios are going to be created in the MDX, okay? So like in this case, MDX division and sister, if I go there, division and sister, is it? So I'm using like measure goals. The function ancestors mean like a parent level. So in this case, for this one, it's against the division, and we hard-coded the level division in the MDX. So we say the team against this division. Or I put another example against the conference, which is a level on top of division. And now we use the same ancestor, but instead of hard-coding the level, we just simply say 2 levels over. Okay, so the grandparent, if you want to take like the structure or the hierarchy wording with cubes. So now, if because everything now it's like pre-calculated in the cube, if I remove division, I will get no error. Okay, it's pre-calculated, it's like in the cube. Okay? So what is best? Like I would probably prefer doing it in MDX because it's a little bit less complex when you need to create your views. Finally, last example is we create like calculated field for date, we create for measures. Now, if we want to do some string manipulation. So now here in this example, I have goals per player position. So even if it's in a cube, the data is not clean in this scenario. I have centers, I have left wing, I have right wing, but I also have some mix of different positions. So my first thought when I say I need to clean this was maybe to use like the left first character, at least to isolate center, L, R, and D, okay? So the result I get from this is the MDX position. MDX position is here. And it's a simple like MDX position. It's a simple left function. Similar to Tableau, left, but using like, again, the MDX syntax. And the same problem is I need to relate, my function relates to a member that has to be on the view, so I will drag and drop. My position field. If you want to see it, I can put it in front. So now C becomes C, left wing becomes C, and I can just put like my position in detail, and now I can see my 4 position. Still, it's broken because what I want to see like just 1 bar per position. In analysis, stack marks, I can just put off on the stack marks, and I won't see the detail. So this is some ways to clean a little bit the data, but in my scenario, it's not perfect. There might be like a better way to do that. And this better way to do that is using another MDX function to create member in a hierarchy. So you don't see these members here. You don't see like center, left wing, right wing, but I'm going to show you how we did that. Calculated members. So I created like center, like it's a concatenation of C left wing, C right wing. So it's a concatenation, and I told in the function, I want to have it in the player position structure. So I created like these 4 members in the structure, okay? So this is kind of creating a slice of data like members, okay? So now we can just see like, I already created a set, so now I can see the one coming from the cube and the one generated by the MDX. Okay? So if you want to, like, sometimes you don't know the syntax of a member, you can use like the reserved word, like player position. You can get like using a function called unique name, the naming convention, the name of the member in the queue. Time runs fast, I need to accelerate a little bit. Third period, what's new? Okay, what's new? So we got a lot of questions over the last year about can we connect to tabular. Are you using some tabular cube? Yes, a little bit. So we got a question very often about connecting to, because Tabular, you can have two modes, in memory or direct query. Since SQL 2016, we're not able to connect to direct query because Microsoft was just allowing DAX, like another query language, to access this type of cube. Now, since 2016 or mode 1200, Microsoft changed it, and now they allow MDX to connect. So now we can support that. We can connect to Tabular using direct query mode. Also, Microsoft allowed the creation of cubes on the cloud. Not the multidimensional model, but again, just the tabular model, so we can support that. You can connect using our latest provider. So you just need to make sure like you don't use Windows authentication, but specific username and password, okay? So you can host your cube now in Azure. So this is not a new feature from Tableau. This is Microsoft, but we adapt to, now they allow us to connect using MDX, right? The latest feature about Cube in Tableau is BW extract. So very quickly, when you connect to BW, will get asked, do you want to use extract or not, okay? So you can specify a slice of data in order to make the time to create the extract smaller and just create a subset of the cube. You cannot do incremental extracts. But what's very important compared to other extracts is once you select one mode, you have to live with this one. You cannot come back to live, okay? Because Tableau will change the way the data is presented, okay? So when you connect live, it's not the same as when you create an extract. So you cannot go back, okay? To conclude, some users, they prefer like predefined. They don't want to do the gymnastic, or you have, in some cases, you might have like some business scenario, business requirements that will justify the use of a cube. Like if you are like an experienced Tableau user, maybe you would prefer to use a direct connection to relational because you can do everything. You can leverage all the great features of Tableau. But sometimes you don't have choice, or you want to support or to continue to use a cube you are using for the last 10 years, right? So the thing is, one is better than the other. You have the choice. That's the main thing. So try to leverage both technologies together, and you will get success, right? So that concludes my session. You have resources available. I think my presentation is going to be available very soon, so you will be able to get the links for that. And I will make sure like my workbook is available if you want to see like the calculation behind the scene. So, and thank you very much for your presence, and enjoy the conference. Thank you.